Testing. All right. Okay. Thank you. I would now like to call to order the August 20th meeting of the Downtown Design Review Board. Let's go ahead and do introductions, starting with Cameron.
Cameron Boland, AIA representative.
Perry Childress, East Tennessee Community Design Center.
Lisa Sear Burnett, Business Development Representative.
Tony Allen, Downtown Business and Development Representative.
Matthew DeBard-Laban, Downtown Knoxville Alliance.
Sarah Martin, Urban Design Representative.
Jared Worsham, Downtown Resident Representative.
Suzanne Taravella, Neighborhood Representative.
Dallas D. Armand, Knoxville, Knox County Planning Staff.
Melinda Woolert, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Samuel Hawk, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Mike Reynolds, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Christina McGrath-Stillery, City Law Department.
Mark Reels, City of Knoxville Plans Review and Inspections.
Thank you, everybody. First on the list is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was July 16th. Does anybody have any comments or corrections to the minutes? And if not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. And next we will go to Melinda for our staff report.
So we had no level 1 since the last time, and Sawmill's going to start us out.
So the first request is for exterior rehabilitation of the former TVA Credit Union building at the corner of K Street and Wall Avenue. The board previously approved another renovation project for this property that never got off the ground. The scope of this current request includes renovating the existing storefronts on K Street and Wall Avenue, removing existing windows on the second floor to create new inset patios along K Street elevation, replacing existing windows on the third floor along Wall Avenue elevation, and installing an overhead garage and 7 new windows on the Strong Street elevation. Existing design elements in good condition will be retained. The window frames will be painted and the existing precast concrete panels will be stained to match the existing. The board should discuss the removal of 9 second-story windows on the K Street elevation. The proposed patios have a depth of 19 feet and 4 inches, so the sliding doors opening to the patios will not be visible from the street. However, if they are activated with seating, planting, or light, they can create a visual interest for the pedestrian. The proposed modification to 2 bays of storefronts will create new blank wall sections and solid wood doors on the Wall Avenue elevation and on the K Street elevation. The proposed modifications, staff thinks that this is inconsistent with the guidelines recommendation that avoid blank walls along street-facing elevations and enhance pedestrian interest in commercial buildings by creating a largely transparent and consistent freedom of entrance and windows. The new windows on Strong Street elevation will not have transom windows or header capstone, but the use of matching header and seals proposes to create a largely consistent rhythm. On the right bottom corner, you can see the proposed entrance on the K Street elevation. The Wall Avenue entrance will be similar. It will have a precast concrete panel capped by metal and then wooden doors. Next slide. Staff recommends approval of the request with 2 conditions. All windows at the pedestrian level are to be clear and replacing the proposed wooden doors on the storefronts with glass doors.
Thank you for that. Is the applicant present? Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, Amy Sherrill, Benefield Directors, 902 North Central Street. It's 37917. We have no issue at all with the clear windows down on the storefront. That's consistent with what our retail tenants that we would anticipate would want anyway. In terms of the wooden doors, on the Wall Street side in particular, there are two inset existing entrances to the former bank lobby. Those we're pulling out and creating a more consistent sort of storefront facade there for those to become the entrance to the resident lobby, as well as a back entrance into what will be, at least in the short term, a gallery that'll be sort of the inside tenant of that space. There'll be retail tenants that are going to be street facing, but there's also the retail of that gallery in the middle. So in some respects, we're creating a more consistent street there by bringing those forward. We're also replacing on that south elevation, the far left, that is currently a solid face, and we're going to be at least converting a portion of that back to transparent. So we would like to keep the wooden doors. As we look to design for this particular tenant, that idea of creating a visual interest in the portal around those specific doors to that tenant that's inside is an important part of sort of their desire and the concept of how we're renovating this. When we look at, the majority of this is either existing or it's going to be new clear glass, we don't feel like the wooden doors is going to be that inconsistent, and it's certainly not a blank wall. There's enough relief and interest in materials there that we think it is actually consistent with the interest that we're trying to gather there at that lower floor.
Thank you for that. Can you just clarify that the wooden doors are the entry into the gallery? Is that right?
Yes. So they're on the east elevation. You can see sort of in the center, there's that piece is going to be the central entrance that's going to go into the gallery that's in the center of the plan. And then on the south elevation, it's the second bay from the left. It's a smaller entrance that's going to be the residential lobby entrance, as well as a secondary entrance to the gallery. Those two will both be sort of a primary and a secondary version of the same concept. Those two will have the wooden doors.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, we'll open it up to the board for discussion.
When you say gallery, what's it going to be?
An art gallery.
An art gallery. And is there, what about the potential if it isn't an art gallery in the future? Is that blank door setup, which may be specific to the art gallery's needs, if it's just a boutique store or something like that, how would that storefront entrance serve a new tenant for that?
I think much like any situation that you're in with a storefront like this, there are times where the storefronts are changed. Sometimes to change the door configuration or other things about that. I don't think replacing those doors with clear doors in the future would be an issue whatsoever.
And was it a request from the gallery? Is it like a light lock or something for the art itself?
It's not necessarily to create a light lock. Has more to do with the experience of wanting to. Those doors will be pinned open during. There's a vestibule.
Yeah, I was about to say, are they going to be open on the street?
The Gay Street side will be pinned open during business hours.
That should have been your lead in, because I think that would help.
So it'll only be closed in those non-business or non-event hours.
Right. Which mitigates the concern of someone walking by and thinking, what's this formidable blank face? So beyond that will be glass?
There's a clear storefront set inside of that.
Okay. And we're not reviewing signage, but I assume that that's also, would it get signage on those large doors as well, or is it going above or below or beside to the gallery's name?
The intent would be that it would actually be in that precast band above it. So where you've got kind of where the mouse is right now, it would be consistent there is more of what you would expect, not on those doors.
So you'll have to resubmit that at some point for the signage. Can you talk a little bit about the stained concrete? So that's a new material you're trying to add throughout?
So the all of the lower portion that's kind of showing up as that sort of brown pink in this projection is existing precast.
Yeah.
And so we're proposing to stain that with a charcoal color that will create a more consistent, this is a very bland 1980s building. And so by staining that with a charcoal, it'll really emphasize that as a base and then a top. to be a little bit more consistent with urban design.
Right. My last, well, there's other questions, but the double hung windows, what was the thought process in the double hung for those upper units, the replacements?
So the owner would like to add the additional windows there, which is a blank facade. That particular area is a lot closer to where it's aligned with where the beginning of the towers start. So it's pretty far down, you know, Strong Street, but I believe it's an actual closed alley. And so it's actually not really a pedestrian or a vehicular way. It's a very private use situation. Because we're looking to add new, they wanted to go ahead and look at being able to open those as being able to get, you know, a little bit more connection as opposed to trying to modify, you know, all of the other existing in that image. It's taking advantage of that brief moment to be able to have operable windows.
Right. And just overall double hung, I mean, the adjacent windows being fixed and then having the detail that they do and the, well, see, the drawing I have doesn't have the transoms.
It doesn't. It's on the bottom left here. So the west elevation, Strong Street,
Yeah.
it's the 7 that are of darker tone.
So, but the top right image on the south elevation has transoms over double hungs.
Those windows are all existing. And those windows, the
Okay.
double hung is actually, they're not double hung. The wall avenue are going to be replaced. And they would like for those are where bedrooms are, and they would like to be able to have the airflow in
Yeah.
those.
And there's an
specific
egress
areas.
requirement for them to flee in an event.
We have plenty of exits to not have to, and sprinklers to not have to deal with egress, but
You don't have to have an egress window.
as long as you have sprinklers and proper exits.
So it's purely to have the airflow.
Yeah.
I have a few more questions, but I want others to talk if they have anything.
I have a couple of clarifying questions about like transparency and solid. So the doors will be solid, and especially like the Gay Street entrance, it's the doors and then all the paneling around it to like the next brick pier. And this may change over time, but what I'm curious about is like all the other storefront looking sections that are mostly shown black and white, are those fully transparent or are
Yes.
like the large squares solid? They're all transparent
They're all
glass.
fully transparent.
And are those, this question is kind of about this gallery tenant, but also just the future. Are there like demising walls between each bay? Because I'm wondering if you're walking past the transparent section, do you get to see the side of the gallery, or is it just kind of a tunnel of a solid?
The
Section in the
retail
middle.
spaces effectively form a band around that outside, and so they're very shallow spaces, and then the gallery is deeper inside. This building's 120 by 120. It's a very large footprint. So that gallery is still sizable, but it's inside and it's benefiting from, there's a large atrium monitor. So it's a completely different experience. So you would not get a glimpse of that unless it's in those hours where you get the view through with those doors pinned open.
Okay. And so obviously the doors are opened all day. They're not worried about, my concern when I saw this first is like, how am I not going to hit people? I won't be able to see them if I'm exiting, out onto the street. But I guess if it's pinned open all the time, was that a concern for them, not being able to see out?
They're set back just enough to open in inside of sort of the frame. And so there's again, talking about materials and relief, that like this is not a flat, solid piece, but those wooden doors will open up, but not they're not allowed to open into the sidewalk.
Okay.
I have a question on I guess it's the south, the Wall Street side. The wood door that's going to be on that side, did you say that was the resident entrance and exit?
Yes.
So is there any windows around those wood doors?
No.
So I'm resident representative, so I live downtown. One thing to maybe consider with that is if I'm coming out early in the morning, there's no visibility to see outside there. And, we have a certain there's, a population downtown that would be helpful to be aware of as you're coming out. So that would just maybe, from a safety standpoint, that would be something to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have dimensions on the wood doors? Height, width, and thickness?
So the Gay Street panels are a lot wider, 8 foot tall to be consistent with the other doors and sort of patterning of that. So they're both 8 foot tall, but these doors, I believe, are 12 total, so six and six. So those are like big slabs that'll open and pin into place that'll be part of that. And then the residential side is more of a traditional 3 foot.
Okay. And how, do you know how thick the doors are?
They're not going to be much different than a standard, obviously the bigger the door, there's probably a little bit more thickness to make sure that they're sturdy, but we're not talking about something other than, a couple of inches.
Okay. And is the gallery owner also the building owner?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anything in your application that speaks to the window detailing more than the storefront image that's submitted thus far? I see the sections at the end for the openings you guys are trying to create, but not like the actual, like the new windows and like despite its faults, the interest of that Gay Street facade is the depth the windows have with the precast around it. And I would think that it's like your all's duty as the architects to provide a similar like massive relief with those new punches that are going in it.
So
And I don't have enough information to know really I guess what I'm posturing towards is whatever you can tell me, but also there's no drawing so far that really tells us what the windows are going to be, and I feel like that's a lacking part of the application.
So when you look at the Wall Avenue side, which are going to be the ones that are going to be, obviously most visible, those are going inside of that existing detailing that you're referring to, the precast concrete sort of casing.
Mm-hmm.
So there won't be much differentiation in that we are taking that as, we're replacing them and trying to mimic that as best we can.
Is it drawn like that though? Like if you zoom in, would I see that perimeter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's actually, it is hard on this scale, but yes, the detailing is there. It's gray because it's existing and we plan to leave it. As you turn around, you can see it actually a little more clearly in the brand new windows that we're proposing there on the Strong Street West elevation. You can see that there are some leaders there that are cut off in that particular view that we're attempting to say that that's the intent, is to provide head and sill that give that sort of framing to be more consistent.
And on the south elevation on Wall, you're able to keep transoms, or are you adding new transoms above the double hung?
On those particular windows, I'm trying to remember how they came apart.
On the south
We
elevation?
were replacing, we were looking at the double hung in those bedrooms.
Yeah, the transoms are going to remain.
Yeah.
So transoms can stay, but then when you get on the west elevation, because those are new punches, you're not introducing new transoms to match the transoms everywhere else.
Correct.
That's what I'm just trying to find some consistency in it.
So part of that had to do with, when you're retrofitting what's happening on Wall, we're creating double hung windows that aren't really ideal to fit in that hole, to have, to keep the consistency of what's there in terms of the opening size, but allow for the function. When we go around the corner, we felt we're far enough out of the context of, even when you're walking from Market Square, you really aren't going to notice much of, the existing windows are so far down. You're looking at where in that picture to the right, the shaded area that's being shaded by TVA towers. We're so far down there that we felt that not having the transoms in that location was not going to be detrimental. Again, it's a closed, it's called Strong Street, but it's not a street. There's not a pedestrian or vehicular movement through there other than deliveries.
Yeah. My opinion is that every facade matters, even if it's a secondary or tertiary. Another question on the double hung, given there's casement or, there's that vertical mullion in the middle of some of the windows, was there a consideration of casement windows instead of double hung? Because that horizontal band is obviously atypical to the facade design.
We looked at a number of options. The sills are low, and so the windows in those rooms will actually come down, and they'll have a lock in the lowers. So in order to do other like a swing out, you'd have to have a guard in them
Because
to
they're
prevent
too low.
falls. Yeah, so there's some safety concerns there.
But if you have a double hung, you can lift the bottom, so is it not the same?
They'll have a stop in them that will prevent them from opening more than the allowable 4 inches, or so the upper can move more freely. The bottom will have a stop in it.
Is the 4 inches going to give you the airflow you need that you're doing them for?
We've done this in other areas of downtown, and it's been, especially with the upper pane being able to be mobile.
To finish my thought, my opinion is that there needs to be some additional information on the window. Have you submitted the window types in this application or just the storefront type?
The windows would be of a storefront,
They'd be storefront windows,
so they would match what we've submitted in terms of that.
so double hung but storefront?
Made by the same company. So a little different product, but have the
Yeah,
same
we
look.
always harp on people matching, like, there's windows to remain, correct?
Yeah.
So what reference are they making to the existing windows is my question.
That was part of the application, right, that they're going to be painted to match?
That is their desire.
Yeah.
So you'll paint new and old all the same color. They're all going to get murdered out black.
They will all be painted, yes.
Yeah.
I'll help you with that.
That was a technical term. Last comment I had was on the new openings on Gay Street. One small detail is where the 36-inch minimum you're trying to have for the fall protection. Would there be any way to inset that extension you're having to put on the precast sill inside in that balcony to where it essentially just slips behind the precast section to where from the outside you still read the full, like, typical or the actual existing opening? And then that layer of the guardrail is beyond, so it's not a part of the facade anymore?
It's possible, and it may end up being that it needs to be
Yeah,
detailed.
to mount
There's a cant to that trim that makes it difficult to attach.
Okay, so before I move on, and to keep in my head, the storefront image that has the black under it is to be also what your windows will be under existing transoms. It'll be the same window type, an aluminum frame under what existing window?
So the frames on the wall avenue will have to be, I mean, they're going to be custom created to be able to fit into that whole situation, but they will be black or charcoal colored to match everything else to be consistent there. And then as we turn the corner, these new will be all new without transoms.
Yeah, and are the transoms wood framed or wood?
They're not, they're metal.
They're metal as well.
How does the thickness of the window sashes, like in the double hung, like when I think storefront, it's a little thicker than what I typically think of as like a sash in a double hung. How does the thickness of those new double hung sashes compare to like the existing windows that'll be right below it, like those metal frames?
So again, those will somewhat be a custom build to try and match those as best we can, because it's an odd condition to fit into. That when you talk about what's available for a jam, it's a very unique situation.
So they'll make that, if they need to make it thinner on that top layer of windows to match the ones right below, they can do that.
Is there anything historic about this building that we would require profiles?
1986.
I mean, it's pretty long ago.
No, it's not.
That's so long ago.
Doesn't make 50.
Okay.
It's a Dwayne Breed, actually.
Yeah, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a question about the soffits at your carved out balcony and also at your new storefront locations. I didn't see anything in there about those because they will play a pretty important part of the pedestrian experience. When they're looking up, that's pretty much all they'll see. So is there a particular material you have in mind for those balconies?
I don't believe we've gotten all that far, other than, it's going to be an outdoor space and making sure that it's an appropriate material for those conditions. We're working with an existing structure and slab and have to be very particular about how we close that up to.
Sure, that makes sense. How deep are those balconies?
They're close to 20 feet deep.
Okay. Yeah, so I imagine those balconies, especially at night, they'll have a glow to them. So
That's the end.
I would like to see a little bit more detail on those ceilings. And then also at your storefront where you're proposing the stone facade, will that wrap up into the ceiling or into the soffit, or is that something else?
So the condition that's there, it's kind of an odd, there's some funny layers to how that already works, and the idea would be that it would be consistent with how that looks now. So in the few instances, so the third picture, the bottom left, where we're taking out that marble to create the additional storefront, that marble is set back similar to the way the other glazing that's existing currently is. So will be the relief of that, if that's what you're aiming for, will be very similar. So that condition of what's underturned is an existing condition.
I see, okay. And then to Cameron's point about the windows on Gay Street, the new ones above, I do agree that the double hung nature of it gives a horizontality.
You're talking about Wall Street or Wall Avenue?
Oh, Wall Avenue, yeah. Yep, Wall Avenue. I think that it gives a horizontality that's inappropriate for that street particularly. I don't have any issue with the Strong Street. I know it's I've worked on a project in that alley and it's literally nobody goes down it. It's a dead end alley. So, but on the Wall Avenue side, I think a casement or awning would be more appropriate for this particular site. Was there any consideration to that, or?
Like I said, we looked at various options of how do you if you're wanting to open the window, you're opening it to try and get airflow. Currently, those windows have a very slight tilt to them, but you're talking about like very few inches of what's actually there, and they don't, from having been in the building, it does not provide sufficient airflow if that's what you're trying to get to. So going with the double hung was our way of being able to manage the safety concerns of the fall protection while also allowing that top slide to come down. And we've done similar things in other projects downtown, and we felt that was consistent with how we've handled it in other cases.
Okay.
And then just to clarify, the tilt is the discrepancy between the frame of the transom and the sill. Is that right? That they're not aligned correctly to accommodate
It's just the existing ones. Some of them have a tilt function, and I think they just...
they have a tilt function. It's not just the dimension of the wall itself.
Correct,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's like a built-in, it's like a lock on it, I guess.
Gotcha,
that-
okay.
Very slight, and it's only some portion of them, it's not all of them.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Will the wood doors have this chevron pattern?
No, not necessarily. That was just to illustrate that they would be, in fact, a more monolithic slab look.
On the Gay Street side, is on that far right side, is that granite remaining there? That has, I think it currently has the TVA Credit Union logo kind of engraved into it. Is that remaining?
The granite is, there's been discussion about whether, that it would be replaced with some of the panels that we're taking to remove the TVA, or if we're going to try and the TVA Credit Union isn't a historic name, so it's difficult to say that it's important to, preserve that, whereas other buildings in downtown, the historic name is more pertinent. So we've gone both directions, but the idea is that it would remain the granite, whether it'll be replaced with another piece of granite that we're removing maybe from the Wall Street side. So I don't know if that answers that or not.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other discussion?
I'm still thinking about those windows. I think it's preferable to have an interior rail and a casement or awning style window because that's what you experience from the exterior. And then the interior rail kind of serves that. It, solves the problem you have. That's my preference. I'm curious what other members think.
No, I agree. It looks residential for the rest of the building. It's like if they all were double hung, maybe it would make more sense. It's just because all the verticals or if they were all just solid glass, that doesn't get your airflow that you're trying to get.
I mean, it's not a historic building. It is going to be residences, correct? So I think it's more authentic to have a residential window there, or I think it's appropriate. It's all consistent across that facade. It's on one floor that's removed from the street. It doesn't bother me to have that.
And that's, we looked at, could you replace some and not all? And it did look more bizarre if you just did pixel of
I agree with
every
that.
other one. It would look terrible. So it was, let's be consistent at least across the floor.
I think what would have helped their application, one, show the doors open on the double wood doors, like a version of that, so that we would see that is going to become transparent in operation. And then two, the elevations I know you're not supposed to propose colors here necessarily, we're not reviewing colors, but a diagram of the material approach would make like the windows, if they all had like a consistent dark color to them, like not new and old. I know what you're doing, existing versus new. It would probably make them not stand out as much and be more congruent and I don't know, more integrated in the design. It would be an additional drawing. You'd probably have what you have there and then another one that says this is kind of the look that it would give when they all are faded out as black. Because right now they just stick out and say, look at me, they look different.
The windows on Wall Avenue remind me of the Daylight Building very much. So,
Well, and even a nod to Century in some ways across the street.
I've got a process question since I'm new to the board. It seems to me that this application is like not fully at, permit-ready drawings, but wanting to get a design check and pulse to make sure that we're heading the right direction, just my assessment, I mean, generally, it fits the scale nicely. It's a good adaptation of the existing fabric that's there. Do these come back right before permitting? Or is this a one and done?
No, this is
kind of?
it.
Okay.
This is it.
Okay.
And just to bring everybody up to speed, you can, when you make your motion, add to staff's comments. So you can make a motion to either approve or deny and then make your own conditions in addition.
And in that case, we would also, going back to the original, we would ask that you strike the number 2.
yeah, I would like to make that motion.
Go for it.
All right, I would like to make a motion that all windows at the pedestrian level are to be clear, striking the second recommendation.
Can I make an amendment?
Yes.
I think I'm totally fine with the opaque doors. I do think that we should see the actual ones chosen when they're chosen, just to confirm that the design intent is clear and that they're not just like painted blank doors. I think there needs to be some kind of like elevated component to them. So that would be my only.
Would that be us or staff?
That's just what I was about to ask you.
Staff.
Typically, we've done submittals to staff at that level to.
If you have something specific that you want to see, sorry, microphone.
Oh, there you are.
I would suggest bringing it back to the board unless you have something very specific that you want staff to approve. Because a wood, panel door like shown,
Yeah.
we could see that it's a wood panel door and then it's flat, and that has some like general wood texture to it. But if you want something specific, we're not going to be able to.
That was my feeling too. I think the board needs to see it. I would approve everything else and just like to see the doors specifically when they're chosen.
Is there a way for the board to review that outside of these sessions? I think our issue is kind of to your point, Sarah, is that from an order of operation, you have to have these approvals, and it's a very timely process of length. And then to time that also with our submittal to then plans review. I know they check to make sure we've had this approval, but there's a lot of parts there, and we're trying to also make sure we have reins around not not then adding 6 or 8 weeks to timelines that is about a door.
To hold up your whole review. I get that.
You could submit the doors when you submit for the sign for the building.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I would also like to add an amendment to see the material of the soffit as well, if that's okay. Matthew?
I can't remember in the discussion earlier, is there plans to submit for signage?
There will have to be at some point that there will be signage. Part of it is we have an idea of how we want to sign the building, and that will relate to the building as a whole as well as the gallery, because there's the developer and that's kind of all one entity. How we end up deciding to come and request that on the retail is still somewhat of a branding discussion of how we want to control that too. So
I think one of my concerns with the doors is there's really not precedent on Gay Street for doors like this, and so I think personally I feel like if we were to approve the doors, the wooden doors, I would want to see them and be thoughtful about what's put on Gay Street rather than, I don't know, approving something that we're not really seeing. Because I just think that's such an important area where a lot of people are going down through there. I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
I mean, it's highly stylized. It's at night when you're walking down it and it's closed, which I don't know that it will be closed very much at night if it's a gallery, but then it has, what is it, like the lanterns? So it's going to have actual gas lanterns?
well, if the gas lantern part is going to be a discussion with building code, but that's the intent, is that they have that aesthetic to them.
So there's certainly a facade style to that. I mean, like, at what point will the doors be shut? Like, when the gallery's going to close at 11? I mean, it's a gallery. I'm sure it's going to be open late.
I don't have any idea what their hours are, but yes,
So
that's the
it's-
intent. And they do hold after-hours events and other things, so it's going to be fluid.
I guess that's just when are the doors ever even going to be closed to be visible?
I think it's just an overnight security issue because there is a recess in the facade and it's a
vestibule.
vestibule. And so I think, if the place is not occupied, then you don't want people in the vestibule, right? That's logical.
I appreciate what you're saying, though, Jared, about more information on the wood doors and that whole assembly, because it's on Gay Street. Even if it was built in 1986, which was not that long ago, it's still on Gay Street,
Yesterday.
and it's a very important street for Knoxville.
And I do think that it's very exciting that something's going into that building because it's
Yep.
been vacant for so long. So I'm excited for the project. I just think I'm a little apprehensive about the doors.
Yeah. No, and I'll say too, I mean, right now, the Gay Street, the only door that opens on Gay Street is granite. So currently there's an exit door that's in that granite panel, and that's the only actual operable piece that functions on Gay Street. The rest of that is just window into the gallery, and they're not even
It's
full
never
height.
used, yeah.
I don't think there's an argument that
Yeah.
the pedestrian experience is greatly improved with this project. So I don't have any concerns about that at all. From a procedural standpoint, I do think we want to see the doors because it is, it does matter how they look. I like the idea of resubmitting just the doors with the signage. So I'm not speaking for you, but just procedurally, can we say that it's approved contingent upon the doors being submitted along with the signage?
You could have a condition such as the final doors to come back before the board with the signage application.
Okay. That doesn't address Tony's.
I would just hesitate to define that it has to be back with the signage, just in case they want to separate them themselves. They can bring it back with the signage, but I would just
Okay.
let them
Decide
submit
that
the
on their own.
application.
Okay, that's helpful. The other part of this is the soffits, and I do think that matters because it is another facade. It's not a traditional facade, but you do look up and see those. And it sounds like there's more design work to do to figure out how it has to be before you can decide how it wants to be. And so for that reason, I think we do need to see the facade after it's designed. We don't want to hold you up. But the underside of that.
Yeah.
balcony.
No, and that's certainly, that's the whole point of this, right? And
Yeah.
is as people who care about the aesthetic and the experience of downtown, we're happy with that. We just want to be careful that, like, we're not, adding months to the end of a process. If we can figure out how to manage that timeline, that would be great.
I'm stalling our motion because I still have one more question. On the east elevation on Gay Street, the way that the storefront is designed with the horizontals and the large expanses next to the door, that's the design? That's what we're approving? And is the one bay on the very right where the granite is that going to be solid? Because that's going to be like back of house, like receiving, I think, on the other side with the garage door.
So most of that is an emergency stair.
Got it. So it will be opaque. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, again, with the horizontals, I don't really get the horizontal band in the storefront. And also, that's a massive piece of glass next to the door. So part of me feels like that's going to change. So I think a condition of the motion should be that the storefront is approved as designed, as submitted, and that it would have to be resubmitted if it changes in the project. Just so we know what the storefront's going to be on that elevation.
So you're saying if it changes, so if it.
Correct, yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to try again?
I do, but I know I need to, how do I add the soffit? What type of language are you looking there?
I think that
Is that also with signage?
And you're specifically talking about the balcony soffit, right?
I think so. Is that right, Tony? Yeah, the balcony soffit.
Okay.
I'm open to suggestions, but my understanding is you need to design that first before you can submit it to really know.
There's a lot of considerations there, exactly. The way the structure is and where the actual head of that is, there's some turn up there that I don't know how much you actually will see, if we're being really honest, from the street. You're high enough and the angle of that, by the time you have the turn down, it may be moot, but we can provide the information so that you all can decide that.
So I think in the interest of providing what the board needs to make an educated decision about approval and providing the time you need to detail all of that, while we don't want to hold you up, I think that we would just postpone with the condition that we see that soffit detail and the doors at the next meeting.
I would rather see the approval with conditions, even if it means we come back for them, because it gives us a green light to move forward on the things that are approved, knowing that we have conditions that we need to meet on. Conditions on the material and treatment of a soffit and of wooden doors is fairly insignificant when you're talking about the grand scheme of a project of this scale. That I would be much more.
So how would you feel about a motion to approve with the condition? Well, number one there, two struck out, but the condition being that you have to come back to the September meeting for final approval of the doors and soffit.
Door soffit signage at some point would have to come
Signage
back.
can be separate.
Well, I have a question procedurally about that, because if we approve it today, it goes through permitting, it's approved.
They can build what's approved.
And next time, whatever the soffit and doors are isn't approved. I'm not saying it won't be, but if it isn't, then what?
That's why your postponement made sense.
My experience would be that it doesn't get permit until those things are met, just like planning. That when there's conditions on a site plan, you don't get a permit until you've met them.
And you just want to be able to permit everything else and get it reviewed and let those
The crux-
conditions hang out there.
We need a yes on whatever is a yes so that we can move forward with finishing those details.
Yeah.
We can provide more detail, whether it's September or October or whatever fits to get those things in, but
Okay.
that would allow us to proceed and knowing that you can't start until you get the other stuff checked off.
Yeah.
I think the crux is it going to us again and not to staff approval, because usually when we add those conditions to bring back information, it's for staff.
Yeah. So we
So-
can just say that's for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is it going to be a whole new application?
approve this and then say you have to come back to the next meeting. Unless they submit a new application, they can't.
Which we can. We can submit a new application. That would put us on October. Right? Time.
So we can say all of this is approved except these 3 items or 2 items.
I believe so.
I also think if that's hairy procedurally, to me, if I'm reading the room right, I think the sentiment is that as an early design check, in general, this feels like a really positive, like the big picture is heading in the right direction. And so if you're planning to come back one more time regardless, that's a safe thing to do, to just get the doors and the rest of it approved. In other words, I wouldn't be, if just me, but I wouldn't be nervous that, like we've had an in-depth discussion, so I don't think any of the things that have gotten the thumbs up in this discussion would come back into question outside of the doors and the soffits.
I think that one thing that could be done, you could do a motion to approve with number 1 today. And then on the issue of the soffit and the doors, you could postpone to September. That way it all stays under the same COA, but there is that approval on everything else that's generally agreed upon.
And that's allowed? You're
Yeah, I
good
don't
with
see
that?
why
Okay.
not. I think you could do that.
Yeah, I think
That
it'd be
sounds best of all worlds.
preferable, so we don't have 2 separate
Right.
COAs and approvals. If we can get in if you're all comfortable moving forward with everything else, then we can come back with the other items
great.
as part of the same approval. So as staff, if they say they wanted to go ahead and submit for permitting, whatever, we wouldn't be able to sign off on the plans until the COA is complete. Even with the postponement item, if they submitted plans for permitting, we couldn't even really sign off on those either, because they would have to have the other items to even get the permit. So, one way or another, they can't really, try to cheat the system and get through and get permits and stuff. But I think if we can keep it under 1 COA, 1 application, ultimately it'd be preferable.
Great, thank you. Can I take an opportunity to try to summarize all that? Okay, so what I think we want to do is approve based on staff recommendation, striking item 2, and postponing the door selection and the soffit detail until the September meeting?
I think you could say September. If they're not ready, I guess we could just postpone
We
that
could
until
request
the
to
next.
postpone if.
Yeah.
Great, okay. Everybody cool with that? Okay, do you want to say that?
Sure. I would like to make a motion to approve per staff recommendation, striking the second recommendation, postponing approval of the doors and soffit to a future meeting.
And I would add one condition to that, that the storefront has to be as approved. Unless if it isn't, that it has to be resubmitted.
Isn't that already the case, that if you change that, it would be over the
Perfect.
allowable variance? I
Yeah.
don't think that's allowed anyway.
Yeah. Okay, that's my motion.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, that was number 1. Moving on, we have 120 South Gay Street, which is item 8B25DT.
So this request is for a rooftop addition to the leftmost unit of the commerce building. Lindsay was the planner in charge of this case. This is a revision of the previously approved case 3C24TT that allowed the installation of a new rooftop deck and pergola. The applicant has provided a line-of-sight drawing illustrating the proposed pergola's lack of visibility from the sidewalk across the street. The deck area largely remains the same as the last proposal. It will be set back 4 feet 4 inch from the edge of the building and will be enclosed by 42-inch tall guardrails. The height of the pergola structure will be 10 feet 1 inch, which is less than 4 inch than the previous approval. A minor extension to the existing penthouse is proposed along the entrance door. The commerce building is a contributing resource to the southern terminal and warehouse district, so the historic resource section of the guideline applies. Rooftop addition have been approved on historic buildings downtown when they are not visible from the street. With that, staff recommends approval of the request as submitted. Happy to answer any questions.
Hi, can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes. Logan Higgins, 133 South Gay Street. The changes from when we last brought this are mainly in just how the roof deck is accessed. We changed that up a little bit, and so it's pretty minor modification. However, I want to request, if this is possible, the previous version that we had, the pergola structure had like members over top, that like a trellis member that extended over top. We are in the process of figuring out material and pricing for different materials. The owner would like to do what we've most recently submitted, which is just the solar shades. But because this is only, and we only request this because this isn't visible from the street in either scenario, we would ask that we let staff be able to approve either pergola design style, whatever the final is. And we're doing that as a deferred submittal, so it'll be kind of like a phase 1, phase 2. They really want to get the roof deck installed so that they have like family events and things coming up. And so that's why the pergola is a little bit up in the air right now, or is not as urgent to have that figured out. So if it's acceptable to allow approval or allow staff to allow approval of either scenario, then that's what we would request. Thanks.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the solar shade option, has that been submitted to staff?
That's the version right here, yeah. So the only difference is the structure of the pergola is pretty much the same. The difference is the solar shade option does not have the trellis members up on top.
It's just fabric.
Yeah.
And it's not visible.
It's not visible in the drawing, or it's not visible in real life?
I'm asking if it's not visible in real life.
It's not visible. Neither.
Is it flat?
Yeah, it goes in between the structural frame.
I
to
see.
do those.
Okay.
And yeah, neither of them would be visible from the street.
Thank you for clarifying. Okay, we'll open it up to conversation.
So just real quick, typically, we don't want to have approvals where we don't have specifications in front of us, especially for a record perspective. We want to make sure that we have everything in there. However, I do think it's okay to delegate some authority to staff to approve. But since there are no materials on what this other option would look like, it might be good to set some expectations and boundaries and standards for staff to be able to issue that approval.
So on the screen, we can actually see the previously approved plan for the pergola that was approved last year.
That's the one that has the actual wood members.
So the change is that previously it was a pergola overhead, and now sailcloth is proposed.
So is the application we're looking at now and voting on now fabric or wood?
It's the fabric. And
Okay.
apologies for making this confusing. And I believe we did send, I know it was last minute, I think we emailed a drawing that showed this version with the pergola, or with the trellis members.
Because we're seeing both. But your intent is one or the other.
Yeah, I think they're showing the previous application at the same time, or going back and forth between those. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So all you would see is the structural frame, and then when you went under it, you would see the fabric, and it's
Exactly.
tensile fabric.
Yeah.
No pergola members, horizontal members.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And you don't see any of it from the street. And we have drawings for both options. So I don't see an issue with leaving it to staff. I mean, we've approved it with the wooden member already, and they wants the option of doing the sailcloth. We have both submitted, and neither are visible. So I would make a motion to approve with staff final review on whether it's the wood pergola or the sailcloth.
Second.
And is that, Perry, is that with the understanding that it would not be visible?
Can I make a clarification? The wood version may be aluminum, just to meet fire standards. So it looks wood, but it would be a aluminum frame structure. Just, thanks.
Would look.
Okay, we have a motion.
Already seconded
Oh,
it.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And just to make sure you all got that language, did we have to clarify anything? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Logan. Okay, next up, we're moving to infill housing. The first one here is 3112 Rector Street, which is case 6A25IH.
This application is for a duplex fronting Rector Street, and it was postponed last month, and the applicant has submitted new plans since then. The two-story duplex is 28 feet wide by 55 feet deep, with one unit in front of the other. Each unit features a 3-bay facade with a full-length 8-foot deep porch and 2 projecting bays with windows. The rear elevation is a primary entrance for one unit and mirrors the facade. The left elevation features 5 windows on the second story, and the first story features 6 windows, 2 of which are on one-story massings projecting from the facade. The right elevation features 4 windows on the second story and a patio on the first story to access a secondary entrance for each unit. Parking is a concrete pad accessed from the alley. The applicant intends to use the middle housing standards, and review now occurs separately during permitting. The DRB review focuses on how the project meets the infill housing design guidelines, and some site plan and elevation revisions to meet middle housing standards would require additional review. The duplex is proposed to be set 32.6 feet from the front property line, and the average setback of the block face is 15.8 feet, with adjacent houses at 14 feet and 9 feet. So the house should be moved closer to the front lot line to meet infill guidelines and middle housing standards, and the final site plan should include a walkway from the front porch to the street. The parking pad access from the alley meets the design guidelines, and the site plan features a tree in the front and rear yards. The block to receive new construction is characterized by craftsman bungalows, modified Queen Anne cottages, and infill construction. The duplex is generally proportionate to the dimensions of the lot and other houses on the block, and is similar in scale to a single-family house. The 28-foot wide duplex is compatible in width with the original houses in the neighborhood and meets the maximum building width and depth requirements for middle housing. However, the duplex is deeper than the other houses on the block. The side elevations are large in scale, but attempt to break up the massing with bay windows on one side and trim separating each story. A recess or projection will need to be added to the left elevation to meet middle housing standards. The 2-story building is taller than the context, as the block only features 1-story houses. The duplex also features a 1-foot 8-inch tall foundation, which increases the building's overall height. The board should discuss the height and depth of the duplex. It should be noted that the applicant revised the elevation and site plan to reduce the depth of the duplex to meet middle housing standards after the staff report was initially posted and the case files have changed. The new elevation drawings do not depict the building on grade, but the initial drawings seen here do. The full-length 8-foot deep front porches with 8-inch square posts meet the design guidelines. At least a 612 roof pitch is required for middle housing standards, and is also the minimum pitch approved for infill housing. The design benefits from the front gable massings, partial cornice returns, and rake mold trim, which should be retained in final construction. The large building may also benefit from additional variations in roofline, particularly on the larger side elevations. The half-light panel door with a side light and single-hung windows are compatible with the context. The front, rear, and right elevation features sufficient transparency, but additional windows should be added to the first story of the left elevation to avoid large swaths of blank siding. The lap siding, shake siding, and asphalt shingles meet the design guidelines for material. The block foundation should be parge-coated or clad in stucco. The board should discuss the proposed height and depth of the duplex within the neighborhood context. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff recommends approval of Certificate 6A25IH, subject to the following conditions. The final site plan meets city engineering standards and to feature a walkway from the front porch to the street with major changes to the site plan to return to the board. The front setback to be revised to align with the front setback pattern of the block face. A recessed or projecting feature be added to the left elevation to meet Article 4.6.E.4.B and meeting all relevant standards of Article 4.6 and Article 9.3J, with minor revisions to be approved by staff. Additional windows be added to the first story of the left elevation to be approved by staff. Final construction to retain the partial cornice returns, rake mold trim, and other details as depicted, and the foundation to be parge coated or clad in stucco, with final drawings showing foundation height on grade.
Thank you for that. Just to clarify before we get started with the owner, is it the left elevation or the right elevation? The left already has.
The right elevation is the one that will have to have that additional projecting massing. I believe that should be.
I think that needs to be.
Yes, I can
corrected. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? On Zoom? Can you give us your name and address, please? And you were a little bit quiet there, so speak up, please.
Okay, my name is Autumn Marnell. Our office address is 303 Bob Smith Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
The only thing that I would like to add is that right elevation, right when you walk in the duplex, that is exactly where the stairs are to go upstairs, so there's no way to add any additional windows on that level.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Thank you. We'll open it up for board discussion.
Could you pull up the one that we're reviewing, the one with the actual base, please?
Again,
Thank you.
this one is about, I think, 15-ish feet deeper. Then they reduce the depth to meet the middle housing maximum depth requirement.
Right.
And the revised drawings just didn't show on grade. So this is the same plan, it just is deeper.
Right, but it has the base, the actual foundation. Okay. Which I wonder if that stair access on the right elevation counts as projection that's needed for detailing or not, or nuance.
It's covered.
I'm glad to see a new thought on duplexes, and I also am glad to see a front face of a building, which could be argued, but I think it's nice to see a front face of the building actually facing the alley where they'll be approached, because I think that's a underutilized portion of our urban fabric, is to be able to actually have activity on our alleys. And I think this is an interesting way to address both density on a single family lot, but also engage the other side of the street, other side of the property.
Can you clarify for us if in the new version there's going to be that side deck porch?
Yes, there will be.
Okay. Is there any possibility of covering that?
Putting a covering.
Yeah. Like a porch
I don't-
covering?
Sure, I don't know for sure, but I can definitely find out if that would be something that we could get conditional with staff.
Yeah, I think that might be your opportunity for a projection on that side.
Yeah, to Suzanne's point, since you have your stair right there, that's kind of all you have. It's really that detail to cover those entries with an awning, which I think is probably totally doable. That would be a nice way to provide cover, keep the weather out of that facade of those entry doors, and suffice the additional interest that's required.
I am a little bit unclear about how that works because I'm looking at the second floor. Sorry, never mind.
I think not that the height gets better, like it makes it any better, the base, but I think the base makes it a better project with the guardrails, and it looks more like a home and contextual with that than the slab on grade.
I agree. And it is going to have this condition, just smaller, right? Okay.
Shorter.
I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think it's a major improvement. One question I had was in regards to the columns. Are they, I see the wrapped beam above, but what's the material of the columns? And it looks like there's a base on the columns as well. What's that material?
The columns will end up just being wood.
So just pressure treated pine, or will it be wrapped
Correct,
and
yeah.
painted?
Pressure treated pine, it will not be wrapped. It'll probably be stained.
Okay, and the same for the beam above?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all I had, sorry.
Will you be able to keep the tree in the backyard?
Yes, so we actually, one of the things that we needed last time, to be approved were shade trees in the front and rear. So that's one thing that we did want to, and if we aren't able to keep the one that's currently there, we will be putting a new one, planting a new tree.
And just to clarify, the parking for these is the street on one side and the alley on the other? Is that right?
Yeah, the parking's in the back. You can access it directly off the alley.
Okay. I missed that.
And well, that's a middle housing question, but are 4 units required, or 4 parking spaces required for the duplex?
So the requirement is no parking if it's within a quarter mile and 0.7 parking per unit if it's not within a quarter mile. So I'm not sure if it's within a quarter mile of a permit, but if we don't go by that, then it's only going to be 1 parking for 2 unit.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to offer that as something you should investigate in the middle housing review is, do you need to have 4 spaces? It'd give you a backyard or more of a yard, and probably it'd be cheaper.
So the requirement would either be 1 if it's outside of a transit or 0 if it's within a quarter mile of a transit.
Mm-hmm.
The additional parking doesn't bother me. If I were renting this, I would want a parking spot.
Oh, it doesn't bother me. I'm just offering that as the middle housing standards worked hard to reduce parking requirements, and I just want people to be able to use them if they can.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any other questions or discussion?
Back to the columns, I want to make sure that we know what we're getting with this. So if they are pressure treated pine, I just ask that they're at a substantial enough width, so 6 by 6 or so, that feels like it's supposed to be that way and not like it was an afterthought that it didn't get wrapped.
They're proposed to be 8-inch square columns.
Okay, perfect. I didn't see that in there.
In reference to the height, it looks like there's several 1.5-story homes directly adjacent. Not that first one we're seeing, but the red roof back there.
Yeah, the context primarily features 1-story houses with 1.5, with like the dormer, but there are no 2-story houses on this block.
And do we know how much deeper this house is compared to the?
I'm trying to remember with them having revised the depth. I think with the revised depth, it's about 5-ish or so feet deeper than some of the others.
Oh.
Again, it's 55 feet deep, and that's like measuring from that top cantilever.
Yeah, the house just to the south of it is about 50 feet deep. It's like 48. Just looking at the footprint, might be porch included in that.
Do we have a motion?
I would motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Can we add in there the correction to number 4 to change that to the right elevation?
I would motion to approve per staff recommendations with a revision to condition number 4 to have the correct elevation to be receiving additional windows to the right elevation, not left.
I'll second that.
Hold on just a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you. Next up, we have 3300 Orlando Street, which is case 7B25IH.
This case was postponed last month so the applicant could get an arborist opinion on a setback that would provide long-term protection for the mature magnolia tree on the property. Since then, they have slightly reduced the building depth and revised the front porch design. The house now features a half-length front porch, and that will be set 45 feet from the front lot line, with the main massing at 53.5 feet. The city's urban forester recommended that the side of the house closest to the tree be set back 51 to 55 feet from the front lot line for the long-term health of the tree, which you can see here in his email. The 45-foot setback in the revised plans would not meet the front setback standards of the base zoning and would thus require a variance via the certificate of appropriateness issued by the Design Review Board. The board can issue variances if they are necessary, quote, in order to realize the principles associated with the guidelines. The board previously approved a front setback of 45 feet and 1 inch in 2022. In the opinion of staff, the revised design and front setback meet the intent of the design guidelines by allowing the tree to be preserved without significantly disrupting the setback pattern of the block. The final site plan should include a tree in the rear yard, and the parking meets the design guidelines. The block to receive new construction is characterized by one-story minimal traditionals, craftsman bungalows, and English cottage revivals. The 27-foot wide by 57.5 feet deep house is generally proportionate to the dimensions of the lot and historic houses on the block, and the overall massing has been reduced from the previous designs. The board extensively discussed and ultimately approved the two-story height compared to the context in 2021 and 22. The design incorporates details that align with the context. The half-length front porch meets design guidelines. All elevations feature sufficient transparency, and the single-hung windows and half-light paneled door match the context. The asphalt shingles and vinyl siding meet the guidelines for materials. The slab foundation should be parge-coated or clad in stucco. The proposed chimney should be clad in either brick or stone veneer as indicated. So with that, staff is recommending approval of Certificate 7B25IH, subject to the conditions that the final site plan meets city engineering standards. The final site plan includes a tree in the rear yard, and the existing magnolia tree is retained and protected during construction. The porch supports to be at least 8 by 8, and the foundation to be parge-coated or clad in stucco.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes, my name is Kelly Hutchins. I'm here.
Great. Can you give us your name and address, please? Uh-oh. Did we lose you? Hello, are you there?
He's there. I'm his wife. My name is Liliana Urbano.
Okay. Could you give us your name and address, please?
Sure. Liliana Urbano, and the address is 3810 Fairmont Boulevard.
Great. Thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
No.
Okay. Then we'll open it up for board discussion. If we have any.
I was just gonna, the last time we had this, we said just grab a dimension line from the center of the tree to the building to know exactly why you're setting it where you are. So I don't see that, but I see a lot of text that says, this one says the 45-foot maximum setback will impact about 20% of the tree critical root system and needs an additional 6 to 10. So what is the current setback that we're reviewing?
The current setback we're reviewing is 45 feet, and that's directly to the porch. So I believe that the urban forester was looking at the previous version of the design that featured a full-length front porch. And at that point, the front setback, I think, was deeper, but I think they moved it to 45 and asked about 45 since that is what y'all had approved previously. And so that was fine, but it couldn't exceed that. So, you know, the corner of the house that's closest to the tree is going to be set, I think, 53.5 feet from the tree. So that will, from the front lot line, which is what the urban forester recommended.
Oh.
So it needs 53.
It's 53.5 feet to that corner, but to the front porch, it's 45 feet.
Got it.
Gotcha. Okay.
but we've got thumbs up from the urban forester that distance is the math that is required to keep it from it. That's what we were thinking last time. So, okay.
Yes, that's his recommendation.
Okay.
If we don't have discussion, then we'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it carries. Thank you. All right, next up, we have 3305 Savoy Street, which is item 8A25IH.
This application is for a new single-family house on Savoy Street near the intersection with Divide Street. The house is 1 story and 64 feet wide by 46 feet deep, not including the rear deck. It features a 6 foot wide by 8 foot deep stoop supported by one 8-inch square column, and parking is a front entry 2-car garage accessed from Savoy Street. The average setback of the block face is 24 feet with the adjacent house at 21 feet. The house is proposed to be set 33.7 feet from the front lot line, so the house should be moved closer to the front lot line to align with the existing houses. Design guidelines discourage parking in the front yard, particularly front entry garages, and state that garages should be at least 20 feet behind the front facade. The garage should be omitted and replaced with parking that meets the design guidelines, or its location should be revised. There is a healthy, mature oak tree at the rear of the yard that should be retained and protected. The final site plan should indicate trees in the front and rear yards. The block to receive new construction lacks significant context as it primarily features vacant lots and infill construction from the last 5 years. The 1-story height is compatible with the context. The house's 4-bay facade is 20 to 40 feet wider than the other houses on the block and on nearby Divide Street, and the front entry garage makes it deeper than others on the block. The house's ranch form is not found on the block or elsewhere in the surrounding neighborhood. In the opinion of staff, the width, depth, and range form of the proposed house are not appropriate for the context. Guidelines recommend that new construction feature porches with similar proportions and supports for the context. The 6 foot wide by 8 foot deep stoop should be widened to a partial width porch supported by 2 columns. The half-light panel door and single-hung windows are compatible with the context, and the facade and rear elevation feature sufficient transparency. However, the fixed window on the right elevation should be revised to be single-hung, and a window should be added to the left elevation. The 612 pitch side gable roof is the minimum typically approved by the guidelines. The horizontal siding should be clapboard style with an overlap, and the cement wash on the foundation should be revised to a parge coat or stucco cladding. Because of the front car garage width, depth, and range form of the proposed house, staff is recommending postponement of Certificate A-25-IH to allow the applicant to submit new plans that better align with the design guidelines and the context.
Thank you, Melinda. Is the applicant present? Okay. I don't personally think we need to discuss this, but if anybody has anything to say, you're welcome to do it. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
Well, if they end up watching the recording, I think the garage immediately kills any of these designs. And I think you'd be better served maybe pushing it toward one side of the lot and putting a driveway to the back. But other than that, I think we should postpone this. So if no one else has comments, I would motion to postpone.
Great, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, postponement carries on that one. Next up, we have 205 Chickamauga Avenue, which is item 8B25IH.
This application is for a new 1-story house on Chickamauga Avenue. The house will be 29 feet and 6 feet wide by 59 feet and 10 inches deep and features a 2-car front entry garage and a 4-foot, 6-inch deep half-length front porch supported by 2 10-inch square columns. The average front setback of the block face is 29.4 feet with the adjacent house at 12 feet. The proposed 25-foot front setback is appropriate. The final site plan should include a walkway that connects from the front porch to the street. Design guidelines discourage parking in the front yard, particularly front entry garages, and state that garages should be at least 20 feet behind the front facade. The garage should be omitted and replaced with parking that meets the design guidelines, or its location should be revised. The final site plan should include a tree in the front and rear yards, and there are existing trees on the lot that could be retained to meet that condition. The block to receive new construction is characterized by minimal traditionals, modified Queen Anne cottages, craftsman bungalows, and infill construction. The design features details that reflect the context. The 3-bay, 1-story facade is similar in height and scale to the context of the block, which primarily features 1-story houses. The 29.5 feet wide by 59 feet and 10-inch deep house is proportionate in width to the lot and other houses on the block. However, the house is approximately 10 to 25 feet deeper than all other houses on the block, with the exception of an 85-foot deep townhouse development. The board should discuss whether the depth of the proposed house is appropriate. The depth of the front porch should be increased from 4.5 feet to 8 feet to meet design guidelines. The 2/2 single-hung windows and half-light paneled door match the context. The front, rear, and left elevations feature sufficient transparency, but an additional window should be added to the right elevation. The 7/12 pitch front gable roof meets the design guidelines, and the design benefits from the eave overhangs, horizontal headers, and trim, which should be retained in final construction. The slab foundation should be parch-coated or clad in stucco. The elevations depict board and batten siding on all sides of the house, but a note states that board and batten will only be used on the facade with horizontal siding on the rest of the house. The guidelines discourage the use of vertical siding and multiple primary siding materials, and board and batten is typically only approved as an accent. Clapboard-style lap siding with an overlap should be used as a primary siding material on all elevations, with board and batten used as an accent in the gable fields and on the projecting front gable massing if desired. The board should discuss the depth of the proposed house. If deemed appropriate, staff recommends approval of certificate 8B25IH, subject to the following conditions. Final site plan to include a walkway from the front porch to the street. Final site plan to meet city engineering standards. Parking to avoid the front yard, and the garage to either be omitted or revised in placement to the rear of the house, with a revised facade elevation to be submitted to staff showing windows and siding in place of the garage door. Final site plan to include a tree in the front rear yards. The porch depth be revised to at least 8 feet. An additional window be added to the right elevation to be approved by staff. Final construction to retain the eave overhangs, horizontal headers, and trim as depicted on the elevations. The foundation to be parch-coated or clad in stucco. And clapboard-style lap siding be used as the primary siding material on all elevations, with board and batten as an accent only.
Thank you, Melinda. Is the applicant present for this one?
Yes, I'm here.
On Zoom.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
My name is Jesse Alarcon. Address is 4124 Oakland Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
I believe someone said it's a 2-car garage. It's actually a 1-car garage. I did want to ask, is that garage, you said not approved in this area?
It's not appropriate for this context, that's right. That's not typically something that we approve. I just want to say a couple of things about these drawings. We have approved projects in the past based on drawings that have a perfectly flat elevation drawing, but it's really hard for us to understand what is happening on the site and how much foundation we're going to see without a real representation of how it's actually going to be. And that goes for the siding and the windows as well. These notes, I understand your intent by saying, you know, we're not going to do this window, we're not going to do this siding, but what we really need to see is what you actually are going to do, because otherwise we can't knowingly, responsibly approve this project. And with that, we do, I think, have somebody else who wants to speak on behalf of this project. Is that true? Are they here? Okay. So if not, then we'll open it up for board discussion.
Another issue on the drawings and what's submitted and what we approve is needs to reflect that for the benefit of our plans review and inspectors who have to go out there and see if the project is complying with the certificate of appropriateness. My other observation on this one is the lot does not currently conform with the city ward map. So the plat would need to be revised to conform to the, to modify the ward map to have a proper lot of record.
Was this submitted with a site plan with topography? So there isn't any, yeah, to Suzanne's point. I think that I know Chickamauga, there's grade change because Sharps Ridge to the north is just cascading away, so that's really foothills, just typically. But I also think that even if it was flat, unless there was a compelling reason, like they're trying to do a zero threshold entry for aging in place or something like that, we keep getting projects that are slab on grade without the raised 18 inches, at least minimum. And I'm not a proponent of crawl spaces, but I do believe that there's a quality lost in these projects when they're slammed to the ground without the base metal top. So that's another critique. Having the topography, how it's actually going to touch the ground is, I think, going to benefit it to have guardrails, actual enclosure, some height above the ground, and not perpetuate the pancake houses we keep getting pushed on the ground like that unless absolutely necessary. But what's helpful about something with topography is that there's the potential to get the zero entry on the back if that was something that's required, if you've got the fall across the site from north to south.
If I may, there is kind of a slight hill towards the rear side of the lot. We plan on grading that out to where it's an even slope to the front, and the water drainage, there's actually a drainage, a city stormwater drainage on the right side of the corner front property, or the front corner of that property. There's a drainage where you're gonna aim all of the water overflow to that area.
That's something that needs to show up on the drawing so we understand what the building is going to look like on the site.
One of the things that it noted in our packets was that we needed to discuss the depth of the proposed house. I'm not an architect, but I would think that if something is longer, then that's going to impact then the foundation of it, which if you look at the street view of all those around it, I mean, there's a pretty substantial amount of block on a lot of those. So I don't know. I just bring that up as a point of discussion too, as far as the depth goes, because it was noted in the comments.
Yeah. I think the site plan will help it to be able to understand what you're saying, Jared, about why that depth is so maybe not correct for the site as well. I mean, it's because they're getting a third room in it. That's why it's that much longer. It's a pretty efficient floor plan to get 3 bedrooms in a single story like that. 2 bathrooms.
Yeah, I just want to communicate that the intent of this board is to make sure that whatever is built in the infill areas is compatible with the rest of the neighborhood. And so we don't know if it's compatible if we don't know what it's going to look like. And so that's why we are making an issue of it. We can't imagine everything about this and hope that it turns out okay.
It's going to drastically change the floor plan too if the garage isn't at the front. So yeah, I would. Can I see the staff recommendations? I would motion to. Would you motion to postpone per staff recommendations, including staff recommendations and the revisions noted by the board to include a site plan with topography to understand the siding of the building to be able to review for the next submission?
Is that an official motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Would I add that the elevations also reflect the actual foundation heights?
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
I
we
do
have.
a question.
Go ahead.
For the garage, so are we saying that the garage is not approved, and I would have to like change to a different plan?
Yes.
Essentially, okay, I got you.
Especially attached front-facing garages are not an acceptable infill design in this area.
Also, just from looking at the street view, it does look like there is some slope to the site. You may want to look at a 1.5 story plan that would maximize your yard space and not have a whole lot of slope change to your site.
Yep.
Just a thought.
And then just to clarify, can he reach out to y'all to get more clarification on the standards?
I'll follow up with him and explain everything.
Great. Okay. So you have some support with the staff, though they'll help you make sure that the next iteration is compliant, more compliant. So we have a motion. and a second. Does anybody need it reread? You're good? Okay. We have a motion and a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you. And we do have a workshop after this, but we're going to adjourn this meeting and then take a 5-minute break and then come back.